Greetings, soul family. This is Amenti the Awakener, Amenti the Oracle, joining you live and direct on my YouTube channel with another soul download and informative video. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who has subscribed to my channel. Please can I ask that you do like this video so that it can be recommended and shared amongst others who require it, and also to subscribe to my channel and share my videos. My purpose is to bring as much information and insight around the soul journey, around African spirituality, holistic health and well-being, and much more. And so I look forward to building my channel and sharing more with you. So today is October the 30th and tomorrow it's October the 31st. In the UK it is Halloween. And there's always been a lot of controversy around Halloween. Even as a child growing up in a West Indian household, Halloween was something that we did not celebrate. Halloween was seen as something that was the devil's holiday. And I'm just keeping it very, very straightforward. That's what we were told and that's what we were shown. And you would always see the younger people, maybe from the white background, from the Caucasian background, doing trick-or-treating and coming around to neighbors' doors and getting sweets and candies and things like that. But it was something that my mum was like, nope, this is not something that we do as people. This is not something that we do. And so I've always had an affiliation to Halloween. I enjoyed the energy of Halloween, and for me, my purpose or my experience has always been as one who walks between the realms of the light and the dark, the shadow and the life realms, and that's just been naturally part of my journey as I've been growing. I was always fascinated with the spiritual realm. My connection with the source, with the creator, was inside my own consciousness, and from that place I was able to see everything. I was able to speak to my ancestors. One of my guides is my great-grandmother, whom I've never met in real life, but she came to me through visions, through dreams, and she shared with me a lot of information and insight that helped me to grow on my spiritual journey and in my purpose. So my ancestors and that spiritual realm has always been something that has been interesting and intriguing to me, and a place in which I feel home. I feel at home when my eyes are closed. I feel at home when I'm going into my inner realm, my inner consciousness, and connecting with my guides or having visions. That feels like home to me. So I was always fascinated by Halloween and that season. But as I said, in our family was not something that we were encouraged to do. And I always wanted to know why. So I just set about investigating about Halloween and its true origins, okay? Because in many other cultures, some of this information is celebrated. So we do celebrate, the ancestors, especially in indigenous cultures. We do celebrate ancestral veneration. So we honor the connection to our ancestors and the remembrance of our ancestors. But in the pagan tradition and in the European tradition, that ancestral reverence isn't always so easily presented. It's not something that is very much known. When you look at Halloween, you think about ghouls, you think about demons, you think about all these gargoyles, all of these kind of lower vibrational beings that come from the shadow realm. And so I want to just give you an understanding about the whole Halloween celebration and also what it really means and how it's celebrated in other cultures. Okay, so Halloween as we know it was brought to the UK by the Celts. And the Celts were indigenous to Spain, okay? And so a lot of the information that the Celts had, the Druids had, was from the Moors, given to them from the Moors when they were living in Spain. And there's a lot of information about this, so you can research it. And I will be doing a video as well about a review of Maleficent, because there's a lot of information in there, Maleficent 2, about this connection to the spirit world and why it is that humans have a disconnection to the spirit world. And, it will help us to explain why we're in this transitional point that we're in right now. And I've made some notes just to kind of keep me on track. So Halloween, celebrated and brought to the UK through the Celtic and the Druid culture and religion. And the Celtic and the Druid culture and religion is really integral to holding some of the pagan traditions, some of the indigenous traditions of these British Isles that we live on. Stonehenge and other places like Aylesbury and Glastonbury all have heavy druidic and Celtic energy that's there. A lot of the artifacts that we have are on ley lines, and so those and ley lines are energy centers. So those artifacts were built there, resurrected there by these ancient druids who really understood the energy of the planet. They understood alchemy, they understood science, but their main thing was about nature, connecting to the power of nature, and the power within nature. The elemental realms, the fairies, all of those different beings belong to the realm of nature. Okay, so Halloween was brought over and celebrated, and it was originally called Samhain, and Samhain basically is also connected to Samhain. When you look at the Wiccan calendar, which is the basic Western witchcraft, that was and witchcraft is really, in its simplest form, a connection with nature. It understands and is governed by the cycles of nature. So as you have the solstices, the spring equinox, the winter solstice, these are all about the planetary alignment with our planet, so the earth and the universe, and how we can kind of align with that universal clock. And so when we come out of autumn equinox, we move into what's called Samhain, and Samhain is also that time of Halloween. It's after the harvest, and it's that time of Halloween. The name Samhain is connected to a deity that the pagans connect with, and he is seen as the lord of the underworld, and also connected to the evil spirits. Okay, you see that dialogue expressed in many different indigenous cultures. You have Osiris, who is the lord of the underworld. So you have that dialogue of a gatekeeper between the heavenly realms, or between the earthly realms and the spiritual realms. There's also always a gatekeeper. In Voodoo, or so in Ifa it is Eshu, Elegba. In Voodoo it is Baron Samedi and the Gedi, and they represent that intermediary between the light and the dark, the life and the death. Okay, and so Samhain represents the deity that governs that space, and Halloween falls in the time of Samhain. Now, October and November are very, very powerful months in our calendar, because it is the time where the veil that keeps the separation between the light and the dark, the life and death, becomes thinner. Okay, so it becomes thinner, meaning that we have an ability to be able to connect with the spiritual realms in a more deeper and conscious way, and also it's easier to do so. It's easier to connect with those realms. And when you look at the energy of October, which is Libra is balance, so it shows you that intermediary between the light and the dark. And Scorpio, which gives rise in November, is all about death, transformation, and rebirth. It's the time when we're doing shadow work. It's the time when we're going into ourselves. It's the time when the planet herself is now starting to shut down and prepare for winter. So it's about all that needs to be released, and it's all about being in that space between light and dark, that transitional space between seasons as well. Okay, so Halloween was something that was brought in to celebrate that transition and to pay homage and honor to those beings that live in the spirit world, in the shadow realms. But what we have to understand as well is that the shadow realms is also like the fourth dimension. And so when you open that realm, there are going to be all types of beings in there. You have discarnate beings, you have earthbound beings. So those who have been souls who have lived in physical bodies before, who are now hanging around in the ethers for a variety of different reasons, because they haven't transitioned properly. And also different spiritual entities, different halflings. A lot of the halflings that we see, and the demonic beings that we see in movies and things like that comes from the time of Atlantis, where there was a lot of so-called mythical beings who were around at the time, but the Atlanteans were doing a lot of genetic mutations to these beings. So when you see centaurians, like half man, half horse, it's those times that those beings came from. And so a lot of their spirits have been banished to the spiritual realms. Okay, banished to the spiritual realms. So bringing it back to Halloween. Halloween is that celebration of that spiritual realms, and we normally connect it to ghouls and ghosts and all of these things. However, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And although this was meant to be a pagan celebration which helped people to understand that we have a connection with the spiritual world, when Christianity now started to come into play in the UK after the Romans came in and Christianity was brought in, Halloween was vilified because it was seen as worshipping the dead, and it was seen as connecting to and pandering to demonic forces and spirits. And so that whole ancestral veneration part of it was also pushed to the wayside. There are other cultures that still celebrate and honor the importance of connecting with the dead. And that for me is where the closest connection that I find for myself is. In Mexico, they have a festival called the Dia dos los Muertos. Dia dos los Muertos, and that's basically the Day of the Dead, and that day is on the 2nd of November. So we have Halloween, which is on the 31st, we have the Day of the Dead, which is on the 2nd of November, and we also have All Souls Day, which is on the 1st of November. In many calendars, even in the West Indies, they celebrate All Souls Day. So why is this? Halloween represents the day where we open the spirit realms, where we understand that the spirit realms are open. And the whole point of that is to be able to connect with our ancestors, those who were in the life, who were living before, who are connected to our ancestral lineage by blood or by virtue or by things that we have in common. Those who have passed into the ancestral realms, it's a way of being able to remember them and honor them and offer them an opportunity as well to be able to come back into the realm of the living. Because when we remember our ancestors, when we remember the dead, it's almost as if we give them life, because they are in the shadow realms where things are hidden and unseen. So when we have a memory, bringing them into our inner realms, our shadow realms, our consciousness, we bring their energy into life, we bring their energy into form. So just our memories alone are enough to help give our ancestors everlasting life, because everlasting life comes through remembrance. When people remember the good things that you do, your life is resurrected, your life is exalted, your name is exalted, and that is a way of attaining everlasting life. Excuse me. Through the good things that you do, and the legacy that you leave behind. Okay. And so that also ties in with the first aspect that we encounter when we're dealing with this opening of the spiritual realms. So we see the ghouls, we engage with the ghouls and the demonic spirits, because those are usually the ones that are closest to the earth. Those are the ones that are still earthbound. They haven't transitioned into the higher realms of the spiritual realms, of the spirit realms. So they are still earthbound. And so that's why at the Halloween you see all of these people dressing up as ghouls, because those represent those beings that are still closest to the earth. And they also torment beings as well. And they only torment beings because they still feel like they are connected to human bodies and human emotions. So they're always looking for hosts. They haven't yet understood that they've transitioned. And so what the Christian church did to this is they usurped this whole aspect and basically made out that it was people worshipping the dead and people worshipping ghosts and ghouls, but they wasn't. It was based on an understanding that in the spiritual realms, in that fourth dimensional space, you will find these types of beings. And it's understanding as well that ghouls and all of these gargoyle type of beings, they are just a part of what is. And so we allow them their space, but we also make sure that they go back into the spiritual realms, that they have their time and then they go back into the spiritual realm to make way for our ancestors who are coming on All Souls Day and All Saints Day. Now, All Saints Day is the Christian derivative of that, and it's about honoring the saints who have passed. But really it's about honoring your ancestors, those known and unknown whom you love unconditionally. And when I do my prayer, I always say to my ancestors known and unknown. And the reason for that is because some of our ancestors we do not know by name. Some of our ancestors we do not know because they haven't been spoken about. It may be an ancestor who has done something horrible to someone in a family and we don't speak about that person anymore. But that person, that soul, still has consciousness. And so when we don't remember our ancestors, they basically disappear. They're no longer in the spiritual realms. They become nothing. They become back to the source, But when we acknowledge our ancestors, when we honor them, it's almost as if there's a light that goes on in the spiritual realm that keeps their everlasting life going. And so that brings me into the understanding of what the Mexicans hold for this festival called Dia dos los Muertos. It is about honoring our ancestors. It is about celebrating our ancestors. It's a beautiful festival that takes place in Mexico, and mostly in everybody's homes. People make bread. They create altars for their ancestors, meaning that they put up pictures of all of those who are bloodline relatives of their families. They put candles to represent their light in the afterlife. They do things with the children, like paint stones with skeleton faces on it, which reminds them of their ancestors. They make garlands and offerings out of flowers for their ancestors. I think there's a specific type of flower that they use as well. They go to the cemetery area and they clean the cemetery. They look after the graves. And it's all about honoring your ancestors and giving them an opportunity to, number one, be remembered, but also to have the opportunity to come back to the land of the living and to be with their families. That celebration that takes place on All Souls Day is basically an opportunity for you to engage with your ancestors. You leave out food for them, you bring family members over, you talk about them, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful occasion. There is a cartoon out called Coco. And I love Coco because it actually just demonstrates the importance of ancestral reverence, and it talks about how this particular ceremony is so integral to Mexican society, and it really goes in depth about understanding why it's important to venerate our ancestors and honor our ancestors, and what it means for them in the afterlife. And so I really would encourage you to check that out, because it really, really is an insightful, inspiring and empowering movie, and I loved watching it with my children as well, because it helped them to understand the importance of connecting with your ancestors. So I really implore you all to have a look at that cartoon called Coco. Okay, so bringing it back to understanding that it's about connecting with our ancestors. It's about honoring those who came before us, because it is because of them that we are here. It's our ancestors' prayers that keep us going. You know, it's our ancestors' intentions for us that keep us going. And it's also about us connecting with our ancestors because they give us spiritual guidance, information, insight, and protection on this realm. Many people talk about connecting with different deities, you know, whether it might be ancient Egyptian deities or Christian gods or deities or whatever it might be. You know, the ancestors are your first port of call. They're your first spiritual base of power and resource, okay? Because they are the ones that have a direct connection to you. They have a vested interest in you achieving your goals and living out your purpose, because it also is connected to them. So whenever people are asking me about ancestral worship or getting into spiritual practice, ritual, and all those kind of things, I'd say the first place to start is with your ancestors, because they are directly connected to you through blood and through essence. And so their job is to protect you and to guide you, especially as you walk through the spiritual realms. We exist in the physical realm, the realm of life, but we have connections to the spiritual realm. We are spirit. Our soul is having this experience, but through this physical vehicle. Now, when we start working spiritually, we need protection, because we are working in a realm from which we do not understand fully and comprehend within this physical body. And so it's our ancestors that provide us with that connection. They are our guides. They are our seers in the darkness. For me, my grandmother my great-grandmother is one of my most powerful allies. I'll probably show a picture in this clip of my ancestral altar, which is full of the maternal mothers in my family and also the males in my family. I find that sometimes when I put different energies on my family, if I might put my great-grandfather on, or who was from another part of my lineage next to my grand, sometimes things happen. So you also have to honor, you know, the ancestors and their energies and their connections. And I also make offerings to them. So whenever I cook food, I leave a plate of food on my ancestor altar for them so that they can eat with us. Even, you know, my children have a very deep connection with our ancestors. I tell them all about our ancestors and who they were. Sorry. I tell them all about our ancestors and who they were. And even my daughter Sky, who's the youngest, as a child, she would always come into my altar room. And whenever she felt like I was doing something that she didn't like, she would come to the ancestors and she would cry to the ancestors. And I used to hate hearing her cry to them. It was just a different type of cry. And so it would make me come and just make sure that she is all right. And she is a living ancestor. We are the returning ancestors. So Halloween is a time of ancestral veneration. It's about understanding our connection to the spiritual realms. It's about debunking those myths around, you know, discarnate beings and poltergeists and ghouls and all these things. Everything has a source, and the source is all loving and all encompassing. Even when I do clearings and spirit releases on people, the souls that attach to us are souls that have lost their way, souls that have been used to cause harm to others in with you know, and being promised that they'll get help to transition to where they need to go to. So there is a lot more to spiritual realms than we understand. But the Halloween and All Souls Day and All Saints Day, these are all different celebrations that help us to develop that connection with the spiritual realm, and especially with our ancestors. And so I think it's really important that we yes, I think that it's really important that we start to re-educate ourselves about some of these celebrations, you know, that we've been told are bad for us. We need to really tune into it and understand what it is that was being hidden. You know, some of these sanctions on our spirituality came during the Dark Ages, and there was an agenda to keep us suppressed and keep us separated from the Creator, from nature, from the source of all there is, so we would not know who we are, so that we would be in a space of suffering and able to be ruled and controlled by others. Even the Christian faith, the Christian church was, you know, the Christian faith was brought to help people to have a deeper connection to the source, not for somebody to be an intermediary between them and God. And so we've understood how religion has become a controlling mechanism rather than something which liberates us through the understanding of our ability to connect with source, our ability to connect with that which we are, because we are souls having a human experience, and we are set up in a way that we can connect right back to that spiritual realm to understand and know everything that we need to know to fulfill our life purpose and our soul mission on this realm. And so just taking the opportunity to re-educate ourselves about spirituality, you know, even about what it means to be pagan and some of these festivals that are being pushed out, it will allow us to really understand what was also being hidden from us. Occult and esoteric knowledge is all about what was hidden, and so you must ask yourself, why was it hidden from you? What benefit can you gain from understanding this knowledge and this information? And you know, we're in the age of information, we're in the age of Aquarius, so you're being encouraged to check everything. Even what it is that I'm saying is from my own experience and things that I have studied, but it is for you to do your own due diligence and to also ensure that whatever you're doing is in alignment with your integrity. You find a lot on the internet that we are in the time of the lost souls. People are searching and they are yearning, but that also leaves you vulnerable. So you must practice discernment, and you must speak to those who you can trust about things that you want to know more about in terms of your spirituality. Another thing I wanted to bring up is how this energy of Halloween or the graveyard and all of that kind of good stuff is also celebrated in Voodoo religion. When we look at the Loire are the deities, and one of the deities that comes to mind when we think about Halloween is Baron Samedi. And many of you may have know of Baron Samedi. If you've seen The Princess and the Frog Disney movie as well, the witch doctor looks similar to Baron Samedi, and Baron Samedi is a master mason, and he is the guide that governs the realms between the living and the dead, basically. And so he has the Giddies, who are basically his family, who work with him. And so we call on that deity when we want to transition, when we want to bring something in from the ancestral realms, when we want to make offerings, when we want to call on certain energies, we call on these deities, and he governs the cemetery. Now, when I started with my spiritual mentor many years ago, getting deep into this spiritual work and working with the light and shadow realms, the cemetery became somewhere where we would go quite often. And the cemetery represents that gateway between the light and the dark, between the shadow realms and the day and the realms of the living. And so, you know, going to the cemetery, you can feel that energy of life and death both converging in the same place. And so that is where Baron Samedi lives. And so, you know, you're able to go there and make offerings if that feels aligned with you. I'm not recommending it, but I'm just letting you know the domain of Baron Samedi, who is also a Lua from the Voodoo tradition. I just wanted to add for a moment that in African spirituality, we do not have a term for the devil, because we understand that all are aspects of the source. And so even when we look at the devil, it's more an archetype. And so we have different names for different deities that display that archetype, whether it's Papa Legba, whether it's Eshu, they all represent that trickster element of the devil. And so we do not connect with the devil as a term. We understand that everything is part of our experience. So even Baron Samedi, he's not seen as the devil, he is seen as the gatekeeper between the light and the dark realms. So I just wanted to share that with you as well. So what I'd also like to do now, just to end off this video, is to share with you some rituals that you can do that will help you to just utilize this energy of Halloween, All Souls Day and All Saints Day. All right, so one of the first things that you can do is, this is a great time for you to start building your connection with your ancestors. So if you've ever thought about building an ancestral altar in your house, this would be the great time to do so. And I can do a video about doing an ancestral altar just to help you with that. But just to give you the basic tips, it's always about creating a sacred space where you can honor your ancestors. So I would get a tablecloth, a nice clear area where you can lay a white tablecloth and put pictures of your ancestors. It's great if you can take the time to ask family members for different pictures of ancestors, known and unknown. Some of the ones you've known, some of the ones you haven't known. Speak to your family, ask about memories about these particular ancestors. What did they like to eat? What did they like to do? Were they funny? Were they happy? Were they moody? What was their skills? Because this all really goes towards helping you to build a connection with these ancestors, with those people that are a part of you, those souls that are a part of you. And so you gather all of the information you need and all of the pictures that you need. Try and put them in frames as well to make them look really nice and authentic. You are creating a sacred space for your ancestors to feel that they can come and be at home in your home. And so you can also benefit from the connection with them also. When building an altar, it's always good to include the elements. So the four elements of fire, earth, air and water. Fire can be, you know, a candle or a flame. Earth can be crystals or a plant, or even something you know, of an ancestor of yours, something that they've left when they passed. Water will be just a glass of water. Fire, earth, air. And air will be from the incense, so just burning some incense. And so you light a candle for your ancestors. And when I charge my candles, I always hold them to my heart, because your heart is a very, very powerful source of energy. And whenever you speak something which is true, it comes from the heart. So I hold the candle to my heart and I honor my ancestors. I say to my ancestors, known and unknown, I give thanks for the life that you are, for the light that you are. And through this candle, I honor you. I invite you to come into my home. And as I said, I also put food and fruits, especially food that they liked to eat. So, you know, I have ancestors that I know what they like to eat. Some would have liked to eat corned beef and rice. Some like to eat apples. Some like to eat, you know, peanut brittle, different things. So I try and get the different things that they like and I put it on the altar. And just celebrate them. I'll play music that they like to play. I'll play, you know, music that I heard when I was growing up. I play ancestral music, drumming. My family is, I'm from the Shango Baptist culture in Trinidad. So we have our Shango Baptist music that I love to play. And I just honor my ancestors in that way. So that's one thing that you can do. You can make your decision to set up your ancestral altar and create a space for your ancestors to be present in your life and in your home. Okay, and you can do that on Halloween. You can also do that for All Souls Day and All Saints Day. It's about really celebrating your ancestors. So that would be a great thing for you to do. For those of you who like going to the graveyard, it's a good idea to go down to the graveyard and to just light a candle. If you know anybody in your family who has passed recently, any friends or people that you were really close to who have transitioned, it's a great idea to go down to the graveyard, go to the cemetery and clean their grave. You know, sweep down their grave, put some fresh flowers, bring some white rum, because that's always good for offering as a blessing. Pour a libation, which basically means to take water from a vessel and pour it onto the land in honor of your ancestors. Call their names as you do so and give thanks for their life and their legacy, because you are a part of their legacy. One thing with the graveyard, always make sure you clean your shoes after you leave the graveyard, because bringing that energy of the dirt into the home can also bring the energy of the spirits that live in that space. So that's one thing I will say to you. But the graveyard is a beautiful and a safe space for you to go and celebrate and honor those who have come before you and those who are still resting in those spaces. Another way you can celebrate Halloween, or this period of celebrating our ancestors, is to have a family gathering. Invite your family members over. Talk about those family members who have passed. Ask questions. Talk about, who are living, and celebrate each other, because it's so important to understand the power of family. It's more than our, experiences that bind us. It's our DNA, and our DNA and our blood is our life force energy. And so it's always a really good opportunity to connect with your family and resurrect your ancestors through your thoughts, through your words, through dancing, through singing, and through jubilation. You can also do a release ceremony, and this one I think is really, really important, and is a great thing for us to do at any time, but especially now. And we have to understand that some of our ancestors have done things in the past, in their human life, in the human journey, for which they are not necessarily happy about, or we aren't happy about. We do have people in our family who have done things that in our eyes seem bad, and they seem like they're causing harm to the family lineage and those who are here. So it's great to do a release ceremony for your ancestors. And that can be a simple thing, as simple as writing down on a piece of brown paper, a prayer for your ancestors, and asking that all of their sins, all of their, karma be resolved in the highest possible way, in the highest vibration of light. You send them love. May any works that are undone be done in the eyes of the Most High, and really just offer a prayer of liberation for your ancestors' souls, because a lot of our ancestors, a lot of souls are living in a space of torment. Some of them are preparing to come back to correct things that they have done in their lifetime. So when we just do a release ceremony, it really can be helpful. And what I've found is, with a lot of the generational curses that affect families, and generational curses can be simple things like patterns of behavior that keep on going. It might be addiction or abuse, or children being taken away from the home. All of these things are generational ancestral curses, based on the actions of our ancestors, and they've affected us. So just doing a simple release ceremony, releasing any generational curses, known and unknown, from our family lineage, and hoping and asking that the lessons be brought to our consciousness in the most purest and highest vibrational way, is a powerful tool to help you to create change for yourself and for your family, and to use this energy in the most positive way to bring freedom and liberation for all of the souls connected to your ancestral lineage. So this is a very, very powerful time. And I find that it's also a time where people feel lonely, can feel lonely. They can feel as if their shadow aspects, the parts of themselves that they've been trying to hide or they don't like so much, they start to come to the fore. And especially with my work, I've been seeing a lot of people experiencing, a lot of shadow aspects for themselves coming through, and also seeing spirits, having spiritual attacks, and finding spiritual energies in their homes. You will find that there are a lot of spirits who are lost at this time, so they might find their ways into your homes and into your environments. One thing I do want you to learn and understand is that souls are spiritual energy, and at the end of the day, we attract what is like us. So if we are hanging in a lower vibrational space, if we are in a space of depression, if we are in a space of anger, if we're in a space of guilt or resentment, we will attract those energies, and souls who have connected with those energies will align with us. So it's always about keeping your vibration clear and doing the shadow work that's needed, so that you are not, inviting negative entities into your space and into your being. I will definitely do another video on spirit work, spirit attachment, soul energy, and all of that good stuff. But this is just about Halloween and just understanding how we can utilize that energy. I don't want anybody to come with a vibration of fear, and I want you to utilize this experience and this energy in the best way for you. So I have been Amenti, the Awakened Amenti, the Oracle, the UK's #1 soul guide and self-mastery mentor, and this has been my video about the truth about Halloween. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Please do, again, like my video and subscribe also to my channel. Please also leave a comment in the box. Contact me if you would like some one-to-one coaching. I'm also starting up my Halls of Amenti Academy on the 11th of the 11th 2019, which is opening its doors to support people on their journey of self-mastery and soul awakening and ascension. So if you're interested in that, please do leave a comment in the box below or email me at amentitheawakenerofficial@gmail.com. You can also join my mailing list on my website, which is www.amentitheawakenerofficial.co.uk, and also my book, best-selling book 12 Seeds to Awaken Your Spirit, is available on Amazon, or you can order it directly from me at amentitheawakenerofficial@gmail.com. Also leave me some suggestions about any other videos you would like me to do, and I look forward to connecting with you and sharing with you more. I want to wish you a blessed and abundant Halloween season, and I look forward to sharing more with you. Mwah!